The sergeant didn't even look up when she walked into the operations tent. He just heard her boots stop at the entrance and without turning he growled, "Stay out of the way, rookie. This mission is above your pay grade." A few soldiers snickered. One elbowed another. To them she was just another fresh face, small frame, quiet eyes, standard uniform, nothing impressive. She didn't argue. She didn't puff her chest or try to prove anything. She simply nodded and stepped to the side, standing near the map table like a shadow no one noticed. The sergeant strutted around the room, barking orders, showing off his stripes as if rank alone made him invincible. He pointed at the mission board, speaking loud enough to make sure everyone heard him. "This extraction is delicate. Only seasoned operators handle this kind of work. Not rookies." More laughter. More smirks. More underestimation. But she stayed silent. Her eyes scanned the room, the screens, the intel feeds, absorbing everything. Not a single person realized that she understood the situation better than half the team combined. Not a single soldier noticed the insignia partially hidden under her sleeve. Not a single voice questioned why she carried a secure access keycard most rookies never even saw. They didn't know who she was. They didn't know what she had done before arriving here. And they definitely didn't know what was about to happen. Because outside the tent, the distant rumble of rotor blades began to shake the ground. Dust lifted. Equipment rattled. Soldiers instinctively looked toward the landing zone. The sergeant grinned, straightening his vest. "That's my bird. Command must want my expertise." But then, the helicopter descended lower, lower, kicking up a cloud that made the entire camp shield their eyes. A voice shouted from the chopper door. Not to the sergeant. Not to the squad. But directly at her. "Ma'am, your extraction is ready. Command wants you on board immediately." The room went silent. The sergeant's smirk vanished. Every soldier froze, because the rookie he mocked wasn't a rookie at all. And what happened next would flip the entire base upside down. Camp Ridgewell was a place that never slept. Dusty boots stomped across gravel, comms towers flickered in the distance, and the low hum of generators filled the air day and night. If you stood still long enough, you could feel the pulse of the entire base, like a giant machine built from steel, discipline, and adrenaline. Inside this machine, one man made his presence known louder than all the engines combined. Sergeant Kane. Broad shoulders. Deep voice. A chest full of hard-earned ribbons, and an ego to match every one of them. He didn't walk through the base. He stormed through it, barking orders even when no one asked. Soldiers could hear him before they saw him, and even then, you could almost feel the vibration of his voice in the floor. To Kane, rank was everything. Volume was power. And respect was something others owed him, not something he earned. That morning, as the sun burned through the haze, the operations tent buzzed with activity. Screens flashed satellite feeds. A big map covered the table. Radios crackled with half-coded intel. A high-priority extraction mission had come in, one that required precision, timing, and calm nerves. Kane, of course, acted like it was designed specifically for him. "Listen up," he shouted, clapping his hands loudly enough to startle a private standing near the coffee station. "This extraction is critical. Only experienced boots handle this level. So if you're new, weak, or clueless, stay out. I don't babysit." The squad nodded quickly. No one wanted to challenge him. Then she walked in. Quietly. She moved like someone who didn't want attention. Straight posture, simple steps, eyes lowered but observant. Her uniform was clean but unremarkable. No flashy patches. No loud insignia. Nothing that screamed importance. Her presence was the opposite of Kane's. He was noise. She was silence. A few soldiers glanced at her, confused. One whispered, "Who is she? Logistics? Medical?" Another shrugged. Probably some rookie assigned to observe. No one bothered to ask her anything. No one considered that she might be more. Even Kane didn't spare her a full second of attention. He just flicked his eyes toward her and grunted, "Rookie, stand aside. Don't slow us down." She obeyed without a word, stepping to the edge of the tent, standing near the corner of the mission board. Her posture was calm, steady. Hands behind her back. Eyes scanning every detail with sharp precision no one noticed. The soldiers continued preparing, strapping on gear, loading data onto tablets, rehearsing the route. Every now and then they glanced at her again, whispering small jokes. "She looks like she's scared to touch anything. Probably here for paperwork. Bet she's never even been on an extraction." If only they knew. Every angle on the map, every line of intel, every radio code, she understood instantly. Her mind was a puzzle board, connecting dots the others didn't even recognize. When the comms officer updated the satellite feed, she caught errors he didn't. When Kane boasted about the route, she quietly noted the risk factors he ignored. But she didn't correct him. She didn't speak. She didn't try to prove anything. Because real operators don't need attention. They don't need to announce their skill. Their presence alone carries weight, whether others see it or not. Outside, the base roared with the sound of soldiers gearing up, vehicles rolling out, and distant aircraft powering up for early sorties. Inside the tent, Kane continued to command the room like he owned it. And she, the woman he dismissed as a rookie, simply waited, watched, measured everything. Because she already knew the truth. Before the day ended, the entire base, including Sergeant Kane, would learn exactly who she was. And why the extraction chopper wasn't coming for him. It was coming for her. Tension built slowly inside the operations tent, layer by layer, like steam inside a pressure valve. The more the team prepared, the more Sergeant Kane's voice boomed across the room. He thrived on control. He thrived on being the loudest. And he thrived on reminding everyone who he thought he was. Check your comms. Recheck your routes. Don't make me repeat myself, he barked, slamming a folder onto the mission table. The squad scrambled, shouting confirmations, adjusting gear straps, loading fresh batteries. No one dared to move too slowly under his glare. Every mistake, every hesitation, every pause became an opportunity for Kane to snap at someone. All except her. She stood still, quiet, absorbing the entire scene with eyes that missed nothing. Her calmness contrasted sharply against the storm of Kane's energy. She looked like someone who had seen chaos so often that nothing about this moment surprised her. But that only irritated Kane more. To him, silence meant weakness. Stillness meant insecurity. Quiet meant inexperience. He strode toward her, boots thudding heavily on the dusty ground. You, he said, jabbing a finger toward her chest. Why are you just standing there? Nervous? Lost? Want me to explain the operation again in smaller words? A few soldiers chuckled under their breath. She didn't flinch. Didn't blink. She simply replied, "No, Sergeant. I understand the mission perfectly." "Oh really?" he scoffed loudly. "Then tell me the primary objective." She recited it calmly, word for word, even adding strategic considerations the briefing officer hadn't mentioned out loud. Her precision startled a few of the privates, who exchanged surprised glances. But Kane's ego refused to acknowledge it. He smirked. "Anyone can memorize a briefing. Doesn't mean you can execute it." She nodded lightly. Understood. That nod, small, respectful, neutral, angered him more than any argument could have. Kane leaned in closer, lowering his voice just enough so only the nearby soldiers heard him. "Listen, rookie. Don't try to impress anyone. You're not on this mission. You'll just get in the way." Then he stepped back and clapped his hands. "All right. Move out." But before they could exit the tent, a loud beep echoed from the communication console. The comms specialist frowned at the screen. "Oh, Sergeant? We've got an incoming encrypted message. Priority 1 clearance." Kane puffed out his chest. "Finally. Command knows who to trust." The specialist typed rapidly, but then hesitated. His eyes widened. "It's not addressed to you, Sergeant." The entire room went silent. Kane's brow furrowed. "What do you mean? Then who the hell?" The specialist swallowed hard and read carefully. "It's addressed to Operator Sierra 1. A murmur rippled through the team. "Sierra 1? Who's that? Never heard that call sign. Must be a mistake, right?" But the comms officer's face said otherwise. "This is a direct message from Command HQ. They don't make mistakes." Kane scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. "Probably some drone operator back at base. Nothing to do with us." Then the officer added quietly. "The message says, extraction inbound. Prepare for immediate pickup of Operator Sierra 1. Now everyone was confused. Why would a priority extraction bird come here? For who? For what purpose? Kane stepped forward. "Patch it through. I'll clear this up." Before he could touch the console, the officer quickly pulled it out of reach. "Sergeant, you don't have clearance for this one." The room froze again. Kane's jaw clenched, face reddening. "No clearance? For me?" But the comms officer was already looking past him, eyes widening at the quiet woman standing in the corner. She hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, hadn't revealed anything. But the officer stared at her name tag, then at the signature code embedded on the edge of her access keycard. And suddenly everything made sense. He whispered it under his breath. "Sierra 1. The soldiers turned to her one by one, shock spreading across the room. She gave no reaction. No pride. No fear. Just the same calm, steady posture she held from the beginning. The truth was beginning to crack through the surface. The quiet rookie wasn't a rookie at all. And the helicopter on its way wasn't coming for Sergeant Kane. It was coming for her. Outside, the low rumble of rotor blades grew louder, slow, steady, powerful. It rolled across the camp like distant thunder, shaking the dust on the ground and rattling the metal frames of the tents. Soldiers paused mid-stride, looking toward the sky. Even the mechanics on the far end of the base stopped working, glancing up as the sound grew sharper, angrier, closer. Inside the operations tent, Sergeant Kane's confidence cracked for the first time. He tried to laugh it off. "TCH, relax, everyone. It's just an incoming observer. Command always sends someone to check on us before big missions." But his voice had an unfamiliar tremble. The comms officer checked the encrypted message again. "No, Sergeant. This isn't an observer. It says the helicopter is specifically inbound for Operator Sierra 1. Soldiers whispered nervously. "Who is she really? Is she undercover? Is she some kind of elite unit? Why didn't anyone tell us?" Kane snapped, "There is no Sierra 1 on this base. She's just a rookie. A nobody." But even he didn't sound convinced anymore. Because the helicopter wasn't just arriving, it was approaching fast. The tent canvas shook. Papers blew off the table. The lighting flickered as the ground vibrated. Someone pushed the flaps open, peeking outside. "It's a Falcon 9 extraction bird," a private muttered. "They only use that for high-clearance operators." Kane felt his pulse spike. That wasn't normal. That wasn't standard. That wasn't for routine missions, not even for him. His eyes darted to her. She hadn't moved an inch. Standing straight, hands behind her back, calm as a stone in a storm. Not even blinking at the rising thunder outside. Kane marched toward her. "Enough games. Who sent that? What trick are you playing?" She met his glare with the same steady expression. "No trick, Sergeant." Her voice was soft, controlled, unshaken. "You're lying," he barked, jabbing a finger near her shoulder. "You think some helicopter is going to convince me you're special? You think Command cares about some?" Before he could finish, a blast of wind tore through the tent as the chopper descended outside. Dust exploded into the air. Equipment blew off tables. The walls rippled like waves. Everyone ducked instinctively. Everyone, except her. Outside, the helicopter hovered inches above the landing zone. Sleek, matte black, armored with reinforced plating, the kind only given to units with the highest clearance. The crew chief leaned out, gripping the side rail. His headset crackled as he yelled through the storm of wind. "Where is Operator Sierra 1? We are on an urgent timeline." Every soldier turned to the quiet woman. Even Kane froze. The crew chief repeated louder, cutting through the chaos. "Sierra 1, identify yourself." She stepped forward, not rushed, not dramatic, simply moving with quiet certainty. Kane grabbed her arm. "Wait. You can't just walk out there. You're not cleared for." She looked at his hand, and he immediately let go. There was something in her eyes. Not anger. Not pride. But the kind of silent authority he had only seen in people far above his rank. She stepped outside the tent and into the roaring blast of wind. Dust swirled around her boots. Her uniform flapped violently against her frame. But her posture remained perfectly firm, like she'd walked into hundreds of landings just like this. The crew chief spotted her instantly. "Sierra 1. Good to finally see you, ma'am." She nodded. "Status report." He handed her a secure tablet. "Primary target relocated. We need your expertise on site immediately. Command said to give you full operational control." The soldiers behind her gasped. Full operational control? Only elite-level operators got that. Kane stumbled out of the tent, the wind whipping his vest sideways. He squinted through the dust storm. What the hell is going on?" he muttered. The pilot leaned out next. "Ma'am, Command said we move as soon as you're aboard. The mission belongs to you now." She nodded once, professional and controlled. Behind her, the entire squad formed a half-circle, stunned, their earlier arrogance replaced with confusion and awe. Kane tried to salvage what little pride he had left. Hold on," he shouted over the helicopter noise. "This is my mission. I'm in command here." "She's not." The crew chief cut him off. "Sergeant, with all due respect, Operator Sierra 1 outranks you by 5 levels of clearance. If she tells us you're off this mission, you're off." Kane's face drained of color. 5 levels? He had never even met someone with that kind of clearance. The woman he mocked. The woman he insulted. The woman he dismissed as a rookie. Outranked him beyond anything he could comprehend. She turned to him finally, calm, steady. "We'll talk when I return, Sergeant." Not angry. Not vengeful. Just a simple statement from someone who didn't need rank to command respect. She stepped toward the helicopter. And for the first time since she arrived, the entire base stepped aside for her. The rising action had ended. But the real reveal was moments away. The helicopter lifted into the air with a storm of dust and sound, climbing above the base. The crew moved with mechanical precision, strapping in gear, locking weapons, and checking systems. But their eyes glanced at her, quiet, composed, unreadable, as if she were more dangerous than the engine roaring behind them. She sat in the seat closest to the open door, wind tearing past her face. She didn't flinch. She didn't even look outside. She was thinking. Not about the soldiers who underestimated her. Not about the sergeant who barked orders like a wounded animal trying to feel big. And not even about the mission that waited ahead. She was thinking about timing. Because everything that happened, every misunderstanding, every insult, every assumption, was necessary. They weren't supposed to know who she was. Not yet. Not until now. The crew chief approached her from the side, bracing himself against a shaking handle. "Ma'am," he said through the headset, "Command requested a confirmation code before we proceed." She nodded, lifting the tablet. The screen displayed a sealed directive. S protocol, classification level Indigo. The crew chief stiffened. Even the pilots looked back. Level Indigo wasn't normal. Level Indigo wasn't standard. Level Indigo was the kind of clearance given only to operational ghosts, people who officially didn't exist. She placed her thumb on the biometric lock. A metallic chime echoed. The directive opened. The crew chief swallowed hard. "So it's true. You're the one they called in." She didn't answer. The pilot's voice came through the headset next. "Ma'am, I have flown generals, colonels, intelligence directors. But I've never flown for an Indigo-level operative. What exactly is your—" She cut him off gently. "Focus on the flight, Captain." He fell silent immediately. Because even though she spoke softly, her words carried something that didn't require volume, authority. The helicopter soared through a canyon, blades slicing the air, echoing across the rock walls. Below, the terrain flashed by, broken ridges, abandoned outposts, old combat scars etched into the earth. Finally, the crew chief gathered enough courage to ask the question everyone held in their throat. "Ma'am, with respect, who are you?" This was the moment. The reveal. But instead of answering immediately, she looked out at the jagged landscape beneath them. "Do you know what happens," she asked, "when information can put lives at risk?" The crew chief blinked. "And no, ma'am. You bury it," she said softly. "You bury it so deep that even the people standing next to you won't know the truth until the exact second they need to." The pilot nodded faintly as if understanding something he couldn't fully grasp. She continued. "My identity isn't classified because it's important," she said. "It's classified because the less people know, the safer they are." A beat of silence passed. Then she turned the tablet toward the crew chief. Lines of text glowed on the screen. His eyes widened. His spine went rigid. "Operator," he whispered, "your Omega Division?" The co-pilot nearly dropped his headset. "Impossible, that division was shut down years ago." "No," she corrected quietly. "It was hidden. Every soldier on base knew the stories, rumors whispered in barracks during late-night watch shifts. Omega Division operatives didn't have ranks. They didn't salute. They didn't exist on paper. They were sent only for missions where failure wasn't an option, because failure meant more than casualties. It meant collapse. She wasn't a rookie. She wasn't a new recruit. She wasn't even special forces. She was the type of operative they deployed when the chain of command ended. The crew chief's voice was barely a breath. "Why didn't command tell the base who you were?" "Because," she answered calmly, "you see who people really are when they think you're nobody." Those words cut deeper than any reprimand. Not a shout. Not a threat. Just truth. The pilot cleared his throat. "What's the mission objective, ma'am?" She leaned forward, eyes fixed on the distant horizon where smoke began to coil into the sky. "High-value target extraction," she said. "But the intel you received is outdated. The target isn't alone." The crew tensed. "How many hostiles, ma'am?" 27, she replied. "Armed, coordinated, and positioned to ambush any standard unit." The crew chief exhaled sharply. "And command sent us?" No, she said, locking her gear into place. Command sent me. The helicopter descended rapidly as the mission zone came into view, a ruined compound surrounded by ridges. Enemies moved like ants across the ground, scrambling into position. The crew chief whispered, "Ma'am, this is a death trap." "For most," she said quietly, "yes." The pilot looked at her reflection in the glass, calm, steady, unshaken by the impossible numbers. "What's the plan, Sierra One?" She tightened her gloves. "Simple." Her eyes sharpened, cold and surgical. "I go in first." The helicopter leveled out. The rear ramp unlocked. The wind howled inside. But over the roar of engines and the rising danger, she spoke with a clarity that silenced fear itself. "They underestimated me once. They won't survive doing it again." And as the ramp lowered and the battlefield unfolded beneath her, the truth was finally undeniable. She wasn't there to participate in the mission. She was the mission. The ramp dropped with a metallic thunder, and wind blasted through the helicopter, pulling at every strap, every loose thread, every inch of exposed fabric. Dust spiraled upward from the valley below, wrapping the world in a gritty haze. But she didn't hesitate. She stepped to the edge of the ramp, one hand on the railing, boots planted like steel anchors. Below her, the compound stretched across the broken terrain. Half-collapsed buildings, rusted vehicles, and clusters of hostiles moving with chilling coordination. To the untrained eye, it looked chaotic. To her, it was a map. A living grid of mistakes waiting to be used against them. The pilot's voice cracked through the comms. "Ma'am, LZ unstable. Hostiles are locking onto our position. We can't hover here more than 5 seconds." 5 seconds is more than enough," she replied. She jumped. A controlled fall. A silent drop through dust and sunlight. A landing that barely made a sound. She rolled, rose, and sprinted toward cover before the first bullet even cracked through the air. The firefight erupted instantly. The helicopter veered away as enemy gunfire sliced the sky where she had been seconds earlier. "Eagle One, we're pulling back," the pilot shouted. "We'll circle for extraction when you give the signal." She didn't answer. She was already moving. The first push. 2 hostiles spotted her behind a broken wall. "Contact. Southwest corner." They opened fire, spraying wildly. She didn't duck. She didn't panic. She calculated. 3 steps forward. Drop. Slide. Fire. 2 clean shots. 2 bodies hit the ground before the echoes even returned from the ridge. She continued moving. From the rooftop of a half-fallen shack, another enemy aimed a scoped rifle in her direction. She didn't look up, but she heard the faint metallic click of a charging bolt. She grabbed a jagged piece of debris, flicked it upward, and the shard struck the rifle barrel, throwing the sniper's aim off for a split second. A split second was all she needed. 1 shot. 1 fall. Roof clear. Breaking the perimeter. She reached the outer fence of the compound, a rusted chain-link barrier cut open in several places. Through the gap, she saw 3 men patrolling, communicating with hand signals. Professionals. Not amateurs. She concealed herself between crumbling concrete chunks, studying their movement pattern. 3. Rotating. 30-second interval. Perfect. When the first guard turned his back, she slipped behind him, wrapped her arm across his throat, and lowered him to the ground without a sound. Before the second guard noticed, she swept his legs, elbowed him unconscious, and snatched his radio. "Sector clear," she mimicked in his language, tone flat, cadence perfect. The third guard turned at the familiar voice. Too late. She hit him with the butt of her rifle, then dragged all 3 bodies into the shadows. Inside the compound. The interior was darker, corridors filled with smoke, flickering lights, abandoned machinery. But she knew this layout. She had studied a similar one years ago on a mission no one would ever read about. A faint sound echoed from deep inside. The trembling voice of the hostage. She followed the sound. 2 guards blocked the entrance to an old storage room. They looked bored, unalert, comfortable. Comfort kills. She stepped behind them like a shadow. Tup, tup. 2 soft strikes at the base of their necks. Both collapsed silently. She pushed open the metal door. Inside sat a man bound to a chair, bloodied, exhausted, barely conscious. When he saw her, confusion crossed his face. You're not the team they promised." She knelt and cut the ropes. "No," she said. "I'm the one they send when the promised team can't make it." He tried to stand but staggered. She caught him easily. "You're hurt," she said. "I've been worse," he managed. "Can you get me out?" She nodded. But before she could move him toward the exit, her radio crackled. "Eagle One, be advised, multiple hostile units shifting to your sector. They know someone is inside. She exhaled slowly. It was only a matter of time. She turned off the radio. Then she turned to the hostage. Stay behind me. Do exactly as I say. His voice trembled. Who are you? She didn't answer. Not yet. The escape. They moved into the hallway, where 6 enemies were waiting. Guns raised. Smirks on their faces. Drop the weapon, one commanded. She raised her rifle. Not to surrender. To aim. Before they could fire, she grabbed the hostage, spun him behind cover, and unleashed a controlled burst of precision shots. 2 dropped instantly. Another ducked, but she ricocheted a bullet off metal piping, catching him in the leg. The others panicked. Big mistake. She sprinted forward, disarmed one with a brutal shoulder strike, flipped another over her hip, and kicked a fallen weapon under a crate so no one else could reach it. 5 down. 1 ran. She let him. Because he wasn't running to escape. He was running to warn his commander. Let him. She wanted the commander to know she was coming. Reaching the extraction point. Outside, the battlefield roared again as reinforcements poured into the compound. She lifted the hostage onto her shoulder, carrying him as if he weighed nothing. Gunfire rained around her, bullets kicking up dirt at her feet. The helicopter looped back toward the ridge. Eagle 1, we have visual. Signal for extraction. She didn't have a hand free, so she fired a single shot into the sky. The pilot understood instantly. The chopper descended, skids touching the ground for less than 3 seconds. She shoved the hostage inside. Get him secured, she ordered. What about you? The crew chief shouted. She checked her ammo. Round 2. And before the crew could stop her, she turned and went back into the fight. Because she wasn't just extracting a hostage. She was hunting the man who dared take him. And that unfinished business wouldn't wait. The dust finally settled over the shattered compound. Smoke curled into the fading sky, drifting upward like the last breath of a defeated enemy force. The battle was over. The hostage was safe. The extraction helicopter had lifted off. And deep inside the ruins, she stood alone among fallen weapons and silent corridors. Her breathing was steady. Her posture calm. Her presence, unshaken. She didn't need applause. She didn't need recognition. She didn't even wait for the crew to return and congratulate her. She simply walked through the empty battlefield as if triumph was just another task completed. Nothing more. And that's exactly what separated her from everyone else. Because while others bragged about rank, she carried responsibility. While others shouted orders, she moved with purpose. While others demanded respect, she earned it without saying a word. When the helicopter carrying the hostage returned to Camp Iron Ridge, the entire base panicked. Where was she? Why wasn't she on board? Had something gone wrong? The sergeant, the same man who barked at her, belittled her, shoved her aside, paced the landing pad with restless tension. When the pilot stepped out, their expressions said everything before they spoke. Sir. She stayed behind. The sergeant froze. Stayed behind? For what? The pilot shook his head. You wouldn't understand. The sergeant's fists tightened. Try me. The crew chief stepped forward, voice steady despite the shock everyone still carried. For the mission. For the hostage. For us. The sergeant frowned, confused and irritated. What's that supposed to mean? The crew chief met his eyes. It means she did what you couldn't. What none of us could. She walked into a death trap alone, and came out carrying someone's life in her hands. The sergeant tried to speak, but his throat tightened. He remembered the way he had dismissed her. Ordered her away. Treated her like dead weight. Now he understood. He hadn't seen a quiet nobody. He had seen someone far greater than himself, and failed to recognize it. Before he could respond, a voice echoed from behind. She's on approach. Soldiers turned toward the ridge. A shadow moved against the burning horizon. Not limping. Not staggering. Walking. Calm. Steady. Unbothered. Her silhouette emerged from the dust like a figure carved from the earth itself. Every soldier on the landing pad fell silent. She didn't march. She didn't pose. She didn't demand acknowledgement. She simply returned. As she stepped onto the concrete, every soldier instinctively straightened. Not because they were told to, but because their instincts respected what their minds couldn't yet fully understand. Even the sergeant. Especially the sergeant. He took a hesitant step forward. I didn't know who you were, he said quietly. You weren't supposed to, she replied. Not angry. Not arrogant. Just honest. He swallowed. I misjudged you. She looked at him for a long moment. Not with pride. Not with revenge. With clarity. People reveal themselves, she said, when they think no one important is watching. The sergeant lowered his gaze. He felt smaller than ever, but for the first time he understood why. She nodded toward the soldiers standing nearby. There are people on this base who serve with humility, she said softly. Learn from them. She didn't stay for applause or recognition. She just walked past the crowd, heading toward the dimming sky, ready for whatever came next. Because while others chased rank, she carried purpose. While others raised their voice, she raised her value. While others demanded respect, she earned it without speaking. Never underestimate someone because they're quiet. Some of the strongest warriors carry the least pride. Their silence isn't weakness. It's control, focus, experience. The loudest in the room often try to prove who they are. But the quiet ones? They already know. And in the end, respect isn't about badges or stripes. It isn't granted by shouting. It isn't automatic because of position. Respect is earned, not demanded. If you believe respect rank, comment honor below. And tell me where you're watching from. I want to salute every single one of you personally.